Okay, welcome. I would like to welcome. Thank you for coming. I know it's a very hot, sunny, bright day, so it means something to go inside and in a rather, let's say, sticky place, but we're trying to get some air in. So thank you for coming. Welcome to our crossing number 6, The Lovers, with Tracey Rose. Crossing number 6 is part of the public program entitled The Fortress of Cross Destinies, curated by our dear friend Marina Fokidis, who is also here with us. And the lecture intervention, as we call it, by Tracey Rose, is called Shooting Down Babylon. And we borrowed that title from her major survey exhibition at the Zeiss Mokka in Cape Town, which is happening right now. I think it opened somehow in, was it June?
Yeah, no, it opened in February.
It's February.
Closing in mid-September.
Yeah, so it's quite a long duration. And I have the pleasure now to quickly introduce Tracey before we start with her lecture intervention. So Tracey Rose belongs to a generation of artists reinventing the artistic gesture in post-apartheid South Africa. She creates a provocative, complex visual world referencing theater and satire. She challenges the aesthetics of international contemporary art and post-colonial and feminist issues at large. Working in multiple media, Rose places her body at the center of her practice, using the roles given to Africans and to African women in a male-dominated world. Rose exhibits and performs widely, including at Joburg Art Gallery, Dakar Biennial, Walker Art Center, The Project, Venice Biennial, Haywood Gallery, Brooklyn Museum, Tate Liverpool, Bildmuseum, Museo Reina Sofia, The Wheels, Den Gunn, Eva International, Sao Paulo Biennial, Biennial of Moving Images, Mamba in Buenos Aires, Documenta 14, Performance 17, and the Charger Biennial. Welcome, Tracey.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I forgot that I'd suggested that I was going to do an intervention performance. And in the last few days, I think things have kind of dramatically changed because I've been flipping through what to present. And I decided the sort of safest option in this context was to probably talk less about the exhibition because it's 30 years and it's quite extreme. And it's an extraordinary amount of work, which I'm even overwhelmed about contemplating because I haven't had the chance to really do that. And there would just simply not be enough time to kind of go through everything. So what I decided to do was to rather kind of talk a bit more formally about the kind of what I call the back of Disneyland, which is like the background aspect of making the work, and that's sort of kind of the gist, I guess, of the session I'm doing here at the Academy, which is provocation and magical terrorism, and I mean there were two things about that title that I was also anxious about. The one was initially I was going to call it critical provocation and magical terrorism, and I was speaking to my gallerist Dan Gunn about it, and he was like, yeah, but like we should all be critical, that goes without saying. And I got kind of like really irritated because I feel like also within the art world at the moment there's this need to over-explain things. And I was in that zone of trying to over-explain things, but also possibly because I lecture a lot to undergrad students, so there's a lot of over-explaining that happens. And so he's like, take out the critical and just leave the provocation. And I'm really glad I did that because I almost fought him on it. And I thought, okay, let me just let it settle for a while. And then I forgot. And then we came back to it. And I was like, actually, that makes more sense. And then the other day we were putting together our WhatsApp group. And I realized and also I was freaking out before I came here because the title terrorism automatically could put me on some fucking list. And I thought, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to Austria, I'm going to be arrested for being a terrorist. And so I was like, maybe I should have changed the title. And everybody else in the session will also be arrested for being magical terrorists. So I was like, maybe I should have changed the spelling, which is something I usually do with a lot of wordplay, is to change it to, instead of TE, R-R-O-R, rather have it T-E-R-R-A, so terra as in earth, instead of horror. But anyway, okay, so I kind of think I've been practicing the E-R-R-A version of terror for the last 30 years. And I'm going to show you some of the work I kind of think that sort of epitomizes that practice. And I'm going to show you 3 videos back to back. They're kind of relatively short. The first one is entitled San Pedro the Fifth, The Hope I Hope, 2005. The second one is The Cockpit. That's from, when is it? When did I do that piece? I think it was 2008. I think it's 2008. And then the last one would be The Black Paintings, Dead White Man. That was 2012. Okay, so I don't think you need any more information besides the fact that they're video, sort of performance-based video pieces that are installed. So I say they performance video installations. Okay, and we can talk about them afterwards as well. Okay, cool.
What happened with Tracey, I see?
What
happened with her?
Tracey, let me tell Tracey. Let me tell you about Tracey.
Yeah.
Tracey is pregnant.
Scandal.
And apparently it's from a taxi driver from Mpumalanga.
What's the scandal?
Okay, it's one of those,
One
of those backseat affairs.
I think so.
Hiding from everyone.
No.
It must have been
Tracy's got no problem. It's just a bikini wax gone wrong. Shade.
You should have gone to Brazil for a Brazilian wax.
I think so too. That's all. Weren't you getting divorced or something like this? I heard.
Me?
I've been looking in the Bible to find out why this devil's so bad. But God is the one who kills people. He sends his wrath down to exterminate all people, not the devil.
Oh, here comes the cannon. Oh my God, look how big that thing is. It's so great.
Yes, I guess I need some more.
It's one of the big men. No! No! Stop! No! No! Stop! Stop! No!
Patrice Lumumba, Stephen Bantu Biko, Malcolm X, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Pulan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa. Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Chief Pontiac, Dulcie September, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, Stephen Bantu Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Pulan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, G. Pontiac, Dulcie September, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, Stephen Bantu Biko. White. Patrice Lumumba, Stephen Bantu Biko, Malcolm X, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Pulan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa. Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, G. Pontiac, Dulcie September, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, Stephen Bantu Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Pulan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa, white, Stephen Bantu Biko, Malcolm X, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Punan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Chief Pontiac, Dulce September, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, Stephen Bantu Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Pulan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, G. Pontiac, Dulce Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Punan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Chief Pontiac, Dulce September, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, Stephen Bantu Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Lucky Dube, Rosa Luxemburg, Thomas Sankara, Chief Albert Lutuli, Tupac Shakur, Martin Luther King Jr., Samora Machel, Mahatma Gandhi, Che Guevara, Harvey Milk, Salvador Allende, Pulan Devi, Amilcar Cabral, Muammar Gaddafi, Shaka Zulu, Pancho Villa, Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, G. Pontiac, Dulce September, Huey Newton, Malcolm X, Stephen Bantu Bito.
Okay. So I'm just gonna kind of take the sound of this and just kind of have it in the background, I guess, while I talk about it. Maybe I'll just put it on pause. Okay. So this work entitled St. Pedro V, I hope. I was like, yeah, come from a production standpoint, it was really kind of crazy. I borrowed money from my gallerist at the time, who was Linda Givon. She was the founder of the Goodman Gallery in Johannesburg, which is not the same as the Marion Goodman in New York, although they've shared artists. And she started the gallery like 50 years ago, probably like 55 now. But anyway, so I convinced her that I wanted to go to Israel and Palestine to do one particular work. I didn't tell her about this one. And the work I wanted to do, the sort of decoy work, which I still did, which was entitled Waiting for God. And the idea was to sit on the Mount of Olives from sunrise to sunset, waiting for God just above the Garden of Gethsemane where Christ was betrayed 3 times by Peter. And, oh shit, I just made a connection. And yeah, sit naked and wait. And my cameraman, who's like my co-conspirator, my choose, like my brother from another mother, my putiwama, like Chris Vessels, he, okay, so just so you know, I speak a bit chaotically, but shit does come together in the end, right? So you just gotta kind of pay attention and go on the ride. Okay, so the first time I met Chris was in a bar. Remind me to go back to Linda. Okay, but Chris, I met Chris in this bar in Johannesburg, like on the strip where everybody kind of gets. I used to get like drunk at the bottom of the street and walk my way up and have fights with people. And then the wonderful thing about that time in Joburg was that you could have fights with people, but they were all verbal altercations, and then you would depart friends. It was like all this mass energy of rage just kind of came out, and then like people would be like, okay, cool, I got your stance, and then So I was at this bar called Six, and Chris cocked up with his friend George. George is about the height of this terrible. Anyway, so George has got this thing where he's like kind of calling card for girls is that he wants to eat cherries out of their toes. I think he's got a slight foot fetish. So we were like all drunk and stuff, and it was like, and George asked me if he could eat cherries on my toes, and I was like, sure. And I took off my shoe, and he proceeded to slap the cherries in. Chris tells it way better than I do. And then he sucked the cherries out, and Chris and I were talking, and I was like, hey, why aren't you an artist? You look like an artist. And he was like, no, a lot of musicians. I'm a cameraman. So he was a news cameraman for ETV, which at the time was the first sort of independent TV station outside of the government-controlled SABC, which I worked with later in the second piece I'll show you. And anyway, one thing leads to another. We really hit it off. We become friends. They followed me home that night. I didn't know what to do with them. And then I showed them this video that I made for the 2001 Venice Biennale, which was Child Bella, where I play all these characters. And Chris is like, hey, this is amazing. Like, I've got a friend who's doing a performance tomorrow in Kimberley. You want to go? And I was like, sure. So we jumped in his car the next day. We didn't even really kind of know each other, but we kind of really connected on another plane. Anyway, and yeah, we've been like, he's been my little big baby brother also, like ever since. Like, and Chris is like the person who, when I'm like in need, I don't have any budget, he's the person who's like phoning me up and be like, hey, don't you have anything we can do? And it's like, yeah, I need this done. And he does kind of everything. So he also co-curated the last, not this Venice Biennale, the previous one, was it 2019? He co-curated the Finnish Biennale with Bonaventure Nikon. And yeah, so that's just to kind of show you like the journey we've been on. But anyway, Chrissy phones me up because he's decided he's going to quit being a cameraman. And the night I met him, we were like so trashed, and I think it was also around about the time this wall started growing up. And when I saw this wall going up, I'm like, what the fuck? Another fucking wall? Like, haven't we fucking learned? And so this is the war that we shot this in East Jerusalem. And yeah, and so I was saying to Chris when I was like really drunk, I was like, because I didn't smoke weed back then. And so I was really drunk. And I said to him, yeah, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna piss on that fucking wall. And he was like, great. And then, so anyway, I get this phone call from him when I'm on my way to do a residency in, at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine for Africa 2005, because every 5 years, Britain decides they're gonna recognize Africa and they do this major fucking cultural festival, right? And so one of the venues is this place, and that's the name. That was where it was set up in the colonial era when all of the sailors were going back, going to the south and the tropics and coming back with all of these diseases and infecting everybody. So the Brits were like, oh, we got to quarantine them. So they all had to be quarantined, and then they had to test them out for all of these exotic diseases and stuff. So the name still retains, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And so Nana, I always get Nana's second surname wrong, first surname wrong. Ufuratia, Ayim. Okay, so Nana's a Ghanaian curator. She's going to kill me for that. Sorry, Nana. She was curating the show, and she's a really good friend of mine. She's like, look, what do you want to what do you want to do? Come over. You can do some. We got a budget for R&D, and I was like, what the fuck is R&D? I looked it up in the dictionary. Thank God it was there, and I was like, oh, research and development. Okay, and at that time I'm still thinking like, okay, so what am I going to do for the show? Because it's all around elements of healing, and she had this fucking amazing concept where she was bringing over Moroccan musicians who were drummers, who were working within, they weren't artists, they were actual traditional drummers. And I don't know enough details about it, but at the time, what she was saying was that they drummed through the night in order to kind of exorcise the spirit, so that's like a healing ceremony. And it's very intense, it's not like new agey fucking watered down bullshit, it's like full on. So her concept was to bring them in. She didn't manage to do that because there were restrictions, and back then in 2005, everybody was still fucking scared of everybody else who wasn't European when they were in Europe. So I think that was also like part of the problem was like getting them over there visa-wise and stuff. Anyway, so Chris phones me up and he's like, so when are we going to Israel? And I'm like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? I want to go to London, I want to do the show. He's like, nah, man. I'm like, and he's from Cape Town, so Cape Town people have this accent. It's like very kind of lyrical. And he's like, nah, man. And when you meet Chris and you hear his voice, you'll start laughing because it's exactly the way he sounds. Well, kind of plus minus. And he's like, nah, man, I want my Easter holidays. Come, let's go. And I'm like, fuck it, man. Like, how the fuck are we going to pull this off? I'm like, dude, I don't even have fuck. He's like, no, don't worry about the money. We'll sort it out. So I'm like, okay. So Linda gave me this $1,000 like 4 years before when I told her I was going to go and do this piece called Waiting for God. And I was going to do it from LA and go and do it. And it just like the time wasn't right. And I was going to go over with a Korean American friend of mine, which would have been a completely different experience. But we would still kind of deliver the same work. But yeah, and not that it would have been good, it just would have been otherwise perhaps. So it's kind of like also what I'm trying to get at the moment is just sort of like waiting for that right moment when all these components come together, because I never have money to make work. Like literally, like I'm not fucking kidding. I'd never have any money to make work. I hustle my ass off, so I had to like lie to the British people and tell them, no, this work. And it really was a lie. It was just a bit of bullshitting and embellishment of like, this is the work. It's, it's got to do with hygiene in some way or healing and blah, blah, blah. I gave them some spiel. Nana was on board and she's like, nah, I got your back. I'll tell them whatever. So she convinced them to give me the funding to fly me over. I got Chris on the cheapest ticket I could find, which was IL, which he wasn't allowed to take his camera, his shoes, like a whole bunch of things. This was also Chris's first time traveling. And so the night before we had this fight, he goes to our bars in strip in Melville, and all of his media friends are there, and they're like, look, dude, we just came back. Like, you can't go there with like your media pass. Leave that behind. Cross all the Muslim names out in your diary. Like, and they sort of kind of gave him like the sort of protocol to behave. And the thing with Chris, like his parents were both in detention. They were both imprisoned by the South African government because they were both politically active. His father was a minister and his mom was a social worker. And his father spent 3 months in solitary confinement, And, you know, so it's not like this is frivolous at all. I mean, he comes from like really sort of solid activist background. And yet we were still kind of gung-ho about it. I would never do this work right now. I'm a mom. I think he's a dad. I think this is just like, I had death wishes, so I didn't fucking mind dying. But like, yeah, so we kind of managed to get our plane tickets sorted, and then I get us into like a backpackers, because he hooked me up to backpackers. And we stayed at this backpackers in Tel Aviv, and then hired a car with the dollars we were given, and then made it over to the 2 sites to do a recce. I don't know if you know the term recce. It's actually really not such a cool word. It doesn't have a cooler etymology in a sense. There's a mercenary wing of the South African army were called the recces. I don't know if they still exist. Do they still exist? They were disbanded after apartheid, I think. And they just became independent mercenaries. But they were used by the state to do cross-border warfare. And when you do a recce, it means you go into a military site or site that you're going to be militaristically active, and you want to, you know, sort out everything. You want to know where the exit was. You want to like be strategic about how you're going to enter the space. So we go and we first like check it out. I mean, we went recce's obviously, but we check out the site for Waiting for God, which was on the Mount of Olives. And while we're there, there's this guy masturbating on the mountain, and Chris is at the bottom, like hooking up the camera, like checking out the shots. I'm like walking up and taking stills, photographs, and I turn around and see this guy, and he's like masturbating. He's like, take a picture, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, fuck off. And then I'm like, oh wait, let me take a picture. But I was like manual, it wasn't autofocus, so it's all blurry. Anyway, and that made me decide there's no fucking way I'm sitting naked on this mountain. And on this mount, and then proceeded to do something else with that work. But that work wasn't, like I said, it wasn't really the reasoning I was there. We still did it as a durational piece, but this was the real reason we went over. And the idea was that the word urination phonetically is you are a nation. So the alchemy and the magic of art making comes in to play with the spell casting of the gesture of urinating on the wall, so that it can somehow, like maybe the acid of the urine will eradicate the wall. And I play the Hatikva, which is the Israeli national anthem, which I didn't know because I learned it when I was 9 years old from a German nanny in a convent school, and we play there's a quartet of us, would play it when people went up for communion every Friday Mass. And in our little books, it was the first sort of classical piece we did after the exercises in Mel Bay's guitar manual. And it said the Hatikva, the hope in brackets, and then it said Hebrew folk song. And so it was only years later, and it was always my favorite. I used to play it in church when people went up for communion as well. I grew up Catholic, and my dad like blackmailed me. He said, there's no way I'm paying for your guitar lessons unless you play in church. So I'd like do the whole like kumbaya. Anyway, and then I would play this when people went up. And the thing is, I get stage fright when I play on my own, except when I'm strumming. Any fool can strum. But I was like, my face would twitch, my hands would sweat, and the fingers would fall off the strings, and it would be like ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding. And one day I was determined. When people came in, I was practicing, and it sounded gorgeous. And then I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then when they went up for communion, I got the stage fright it hit, and I was determined to finish it, and it sounded fucking awful. There was a little boy behind me saying, Tracey, please stop. Tracey, please stop. Anyway, that was the last time I played in church. But the thing was, when I found out like all of these connections, I was like, I've kind of got to use it. So the characters in pink, this fuchsia pink, which is an inversion of the coon face, or blackface that white actors used to play black characters. And so this is like, if I had to be painted as Barbie or like a white girl, that would be the color of my skin. So, and then the blonde hair was like kind of related to that. And then the tiaras, a representative of San Pedro, who was the first bishop of the church, and you know they wear that. It was called a tiara at some point in history. I don't know if it's still called that, but that headdress. And he was the rock that Christ was going to build the church on. And he's wearing fisherman's stockings, and that's because St. Peter was a fisherman. And then the military gumboots, because they were designer and they were cool. but also it's a military zone. I mean, they're kind of obvious. And then the gun, the gun is the guitar is also the weapon in the space. And then the black eyes and the more emulates the black face, coon face of white actors. So when we checked out this side, we only went to the bottom the first time we went to it, and I remember my heart just went cold when I saw it. We were down in the section where there was graffiti, and we were planning to do there, but I wasn't feeling to do the performance there, but I wasn't feeling so good about it, and woke up like 3 o'clock in the morning, painted my whole body, and then I was like, do I paint the ass or do I leave it blank? And then I was like, okay, I'll paint the ass just in case, painted the ass, and I think I'm really glad that I did that. And then the leopard print pants are, in the leopard print I suppose I don't know how far up in Africa, but the leopard print is also symbolized as royalty, right? But also when there were a lot of leopards, warriors used to also wear the leopard print. And to be honest, I don't know the intimate details of the leopard and the leopard print, like underpants, but I saw a lot of black African miners when they came to work in the mines in Johannesburg. They would wear leopard print vests and leopard print underpants when they were doing traditional rituals and dances. And so for me, that leopard print pants represents that kind of warrior. Oh, you're so nice. Thank you. And let me see, is there anything else I'm forgetting? Oh, and then I'm using a portable, Marshall amp. And I quite like the thing because the Marshall's also got a kind of like military security kind of, connotations, just the name. And then also it's a Fender replica electric guitar. And and so I proceeded to play that too. And I forgot it, that was the thing. I was really struggling to remember the tune because I meant to rehearse it before I left home, like in Joburg in South Africa, and I just never got around to it. And we were so busy like prepping and I never got it. So I was like, okay, fine. It's like sort of like almost like truth to material. You guys are all familiar with Rodin's truth to material, right? The concept of like, some of you aren't, let me explain. Okay, so if there are any art historians in the house, you can correct me. So what I love about the idea of truth to material, and I mean with him, it was a more kind of traditional and classical kind of way of understanding it, obviously, this was kind of pre-video. Apparently he'd sculpted this body, this male figure, and he was in perfect proportion. The body was in perfect proportion, and he was accused of doing body cast. And he was like, really, what is that word? I can't read your writing. Okay. So I couldn't read the writing, and then, oh man, you see, you took me off in another direction. Wait a second, I couldn't, no, we're done. Okay, we're done. The proportions were exact to the gap. So he was accused of doing body cast. And he was apparently really hurt and insulted by this, that when he started working, the subsequent work, he took a conscious decision to sort of highlight and overplay the materiality of it. So even when the end result was going to be a bronze cast, you could still see the imprint of his fingers and his hands in the clay that he was molding. So it was like, don't ever fucking forget where the bronze came from. Okay, it was never originally bronze that made the sculpture. It was actually clay. And I love that moment of just that. It's kind of like the jump cut or like the bitch slap or the like fucking reality check. And so, how am I relating this to truth to material? Sorry, this also happens a little bit, right? It's not a condition, it's just a thing. Okay. Where was that? Oh, you're sleeping.
Well, anyway, I think, Tracey, if you agree to me, so if there's any kind of comment or question to go with the flow, please.
Yeah, just pick up your hand if you got a question or you want clarity. Sure.
Okay, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I just wanted to hear about the second video you showed, and maybe specifically about like your organizing power and how to, how you got all those people to be so like excited for that video and like frantic almost.
Why? Because it had cock in it. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me finish this one, and I'll get to that one.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're just gonna like scramble too much of my information here, and we're gonna be like, everybody's gonna be like, ah. All right. So. Okay. Let me get through this quickly. Chris. Production. Hygiene, tropical medicine. Gottfried. Oh, and there was okay. So. I kind of feel like I've covered a lot of this. Are there any questions really specific about this? I mean, so the day of the shoot, we decided to open this gate that had been shut. It hadn't been locked, but it had just been shut. And we hadn't gone further than that point. And so we were like, let's just see what's on the other side. So we opened it, and when we drove in, we'd actually driven not too far in. And we were like, okay, there's like, I called it the Sentinels, the Sentinel, it was the security guards, the military, they were there. So we were in between the two spaces. And one of the reasons I kind of felt safe about doing this work was because when CNN did a report on it, there was a French photographer that had taken some supermodel, well, they weren't that super, but had taken some models and some I don't know whose dresses they were, and he had them modeling like along, doing this photo shoot along this wall. And there were these Palestinian women that were crying. They said, like, how can you trivialize this? And he was like, it's like the hardness of the wall and the beauty, like French justification for shit. Anyway, and I was like, fuck, hang on, they didn't shoot this guy? I was like, fuck, I can actually do something there. And then I spoke to a couple of people I'd met at parties, and also, I'm not going to go to the more extreme information, but I managed to find out that it would be okay to do this, as long as we were kind of in costume and we looked, amusing, I guess. We didn't look like we were going to suicide bomb, because that was the comment of the piece on the Mount of Olives was, people were using their bodies against state-of-the-art weapons, and so. Anyway, okay. Any questions about this? I kind of feel like I've missed out a whole gap of stuff, but I think I'm going to come back to it. Okay. So let me get to the second one, right? You can always just hop around if you've got any questions. Don't worry about things being up or moving on. Okay. All right, that's other stuff. So with this piece, the cockpit, I was invited to do be part of a documentary series with 7 other artists. We each had our own separate documentary, and the assignment, it was like a reality TV show. We had to create an artwork within 5 days, a 3-minute artwork made for television. And it was for the South African Broadcasting Corporation, which was previously the propaganda vehicle of the apartheid government. And we always, when growing up, we only had 1 channel, and then we had 3. And they were kind of multi-ethnic is the right term, but they started the other 2 channels. There was one with like English and Afrikaans, and there was the other African languages were also presented on the other channels at some point, I think at the late 80s. But anyway, so this in the 90s, this is now SABC2 starts, and so I get this invitation from. It was Hedvig Barry and Rory Bester. He used to be one of my lecturers at university. And they had this production company. They proposed to the SABC, to do this docu-series on these 7 artists, and that's the assignment. And we were going to make these works within 5 days. Like, that's even fucking possible, from concept to execution. And I don't know if anybody else sees the irony of the way we operate in the art world. We first conceive a work and then we execute it, which is like a very pro-choice kind of irony. Anyway, I decided I wanted to do initially I decided I wanted to do a tribute to Nam June Paik and go and switch off the signal. And I had this fantasy that I was going to climb up the television signal tower, and I was going to press some buttons, and then for like 3 minutes, the screen would just go shh, and it would just be snow. And then there was all these meetings with I didn't even know about this at the time, with top level people. And I think it went all the way up to kind of the ministerial level. And they were told, no, if you switch off the signal, all you're going to get is white noise. But it's there's not going to be any image, and people will just switch over. They won't understand it. So they were like, look, we fought as hard as we could. And my fantasy was I was going to knock on government officials' doors and pitch the whole thing to them and convince them. And they were like, no, look, it's not worth it. Just conceive another work. So I was like, okay, if I can't kill the TV god, I'll kill the real God. And it obviously took longer than 5 days. It took us a month to do everything. But we hustled our asses off because also there was very little budget. Hedwig, who was really big, she grew up in the film industry, in the South African TV and film industry. She called in favors. So the set that we used to make the video was I think it was Gospel Gold, where they'd do the Sunday Christian set. And she convinced them if that we could use it on, actually, it was shot in August, on Women's Day. And it was a public holiday, so there was no activity. And then we got it for free, and then we could use all of the props. And then all of the actors we got from a casting agency. And I was kind of just making shit up as we went along. And we went to the taxi rank where there's all of these bales of clothing from Europe, that you'll send ever so generously. When you want to dump shit, you'll send it down to Africa. So we had all these shitty clothes that we could go and pick up and stuff. Some of them are designer clothes, they just got a couple of stains or whatever. Anyway, besides the point. Some people are grateful, but you're fucked up our fucking clothing industry and people are unemployed. That's FYI, besides the point. So you can go and you can buy mountains of clothes for nothing, for 20 cents, for 2 rand or whatever. And so that's where we also sourced a lot of their costumes. And then we went to a costume shop because I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And the one poignant moment in the whole thing, because I'm still riding on intuition, trying to make decisions, was that I had a choice between 2 jesters' outfits. The one was green and emerald green and ruby red, and the other one was yellow and this blue sapphire. And I was like, oh God, choice. And then something said, just take the yellow and the blue. So I took the yellow and the blue, and I wasn't really sure what the fuck I was going to do with it. And it's just as well I did, because the guy who plays the jester, he was the one person who we'd found who was a contortionist. And so in some of you can see does somersaults and stuff. And there was only one line that I'd scripted in the whole thing, and that was the line the Native American character says. He says, I've been looking in, and he's holding the yellow pages as the Bible. So we got to put took installation tape and did crucifixes on the Bible. And he was like, I'm looking through the Bible to see why this devil's so bad. He's the one that kills he doesn't kill anybody. God kills people and sends his wrath down, blah, blah, blah. And that line came via some friends of mine who were listening to another friend of mine who had a radio show, and somebody had phoned in and said, Eric, man, I'm trying to find out, why is this devil so bad? God's the one who's killing everybody, not the devil. And I'm like, whoa, that's some hardcore shit to say, because, South Africa's still very kind of Christian in a lot of ways, and quite kind of reverential for, we got a fucking hardcore African patriarchy, which is incredibly fucking toxic. And the kind of God figure, irrespective of whether he's white or not, is still revered, because he's got a cock, essentially. And so I don't know what to call the piece. I phoned my gallerist at the time, as Christian Hay, and I'm telling him about it, and I'm like, look, this is the work, and I can't figure out the title. And he's like, okay, so what else has happened? So I'm like, fuck, it's amazing. We're shooting in this, basically, it's I've got all of these soap opera cameras at my disposal. I've never worked with cameras like this in a set, because it's everything is controlled, and there's we're sitting in a cockpit, and we're looking down, and we're fucking editing live, and he's like, that's the title. I'm like, what are you talking about? The cockpit. And I was like, oh my God, it's an all-male cast. Of course it's the cockpit. And so this guy was so funny. He was going to play Santa Claus because I still didn't know what, on the day, I still didn't know what the fuck I'm doing. My kind of co-conspirator for this piece was my friend Faisal D. And Faisal had, what he's wearing is actually something Faisal had bought at a secondhand store, which was an Ethiopian priest's gown, I think. And so we had him put that on. And he was getting his makeup done, and he'd like traveled like 2 hours to be there at like 6 in the morning. And when I was chatting to him, he's like, oh wow, you know, I think he was homeless as well. And he was like he basically woke up in a park, which is why I think he was homeless, because he woke up in a park and he got in a taxi and he came to the show because he was going to earn like a pittance. I mean, we didn't pay everybody very much because it was, like I said, the budget was shit. And he said, and they were just supposed to really be extras. And he was like, wow, when I woke up this morning, I thought I was going to play Santa Claus. I didn't know I was going to play God. So I said to him, look, that's great that you're so excited about it, but we're going to kill you in the end. How do you feel about that? And he's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay, so this is the deal. This is how you're going to die. And we'd gone through, Hedwig and I, who was the producer and director, she and I had gone through archives at the SABC's newsroom, looking at how people were necklaced. Now, people who were accused of being police informants, they were necklaced by having a tire filled with petrol put around them and they were set alight. And most of the times they were stoned to death in the process as well. And so there was a girl, when I was like, I don't know, I was like I probably was like 8 years old when I saw this on television. The apartheid government at the time wanted to declare a state of emergency. And so on public TV at like 8 p.m. news, where everybody's watching, we only got that one channel, everybody's watching the news. They show this woman being necklaced and burnt alive. And she'd been gang raped beforehand, they'd broken bottles and they'd stuck it up her vagina. She was like 17. She was accused of being a police informant after a funeral. And it was all a lie, apparently. And then they stoned her and they set her alight. And you can see she's wearing this short dress. And all she's doing is like trying to, it's almost like she's trying to like maintain her dignity and like pull this dress down. And then she's kind of like falling over. And then the last kind of rock that kills her is this flat, almost like concrete slab that this guy takes and he just like throws it on her. And she just lays limp underneath it. And so I'm explaining this to him. I'm like, this is how you're going to die. And he's like, okay, cool. And then he did it really fucking well. And so the jester comes to me and he's like, hey, Tracey, we don't know what the script is. I'm like thinking, dude, I don't know what the fucking script is either. And he's like, but like, I hear we're gonna kill God. We can't do this. Tracey, no, we don't understand. My family will kill me if they see this. I can't do it. I'm like, okay, quick. Okay, we got a green screen. We're gonna put some footage on the green screen. I'm like, dude, you know what you can do? You can stop it. And so what happened was with the green screen footage that you saw, right, where oh, this is Jesus, yeah, Jesus Potter. This is a guy I actually met on the dance floor. He's actually Israeli. It's so funny. He's like, when we first saw him on the dance floor, we used to go to there was a gay heartland in Joburg, which was amazing. It was like therapy, this club used to be our home. We were clubbing every day, I think, except Monday nights. Like, and he was there. But I was like, oh my God, you're here. So anyway, so he's Jesus Potter. So you can see he's got the squiggle line on the top. And he's a little bit fucked off with his dad, right? Because his dad like sent him to fucking die for his dad's products, essentially. Because essentially we are his dad's products, right? His dad made us. And then his dad's like, oh, these human beings are fucked up. You know, I need to fix them. He goes and he rapes a 12-year-old, tells her, he doesn't even ask her. He doesn't even fucking date her. He sends his fucking like his angel down and say like, hey, God wants to fuck you. You're going to be okay with that. You're going to marry this dude and then you're going to give birth to like the son of man and stuff. And then he's going to die. And this kid's like, because, you know, back then, she's not really 12. She's probably like 13, 14, right? Because they all died young. And she's got no fucking choice. That's statutory rape. Okay, I'm still going to church on Saturday, Sunday. But I think Catholicism can take the bash. Actually, I think Christianity can take the knock. It's critical. Anyway, so he's like, so he's fucked off because it was all in vain, because fuck all has changed, right? And so he's like kind of like looking at his dad, and you see that he's actually the one that instigates the murder. And Yeah, so this is the Valentine's card. This is from a love show, where you can meet the a love matching show. That's where the heart comes from, and then so God, and then we've got this photograph called the back of God, and you see the back of him, and he's just so tired. He's like bent over, and he looks like, oh God, I've got to go and speak to these people again, And then he's like, and everybody's applauding, and just as happy, and just as like, I saw him first, and the Native American comes on, he's like, fuck this guy. And then the cannon comes out, and the cannon I just made a cardboard, and cannons and guns, those are all phalluses, right? So if you got a small winky, you're gonna go to war because you got dick issues. So the cannon comes out, and it's got all these guys like carrying it, and the one guy's like, oh, it's so big. And then they go over. And the cannon is the one that's supposed to blow up shit. There we go, and it goes dark. And then they bring out, this is Brutus. Brutus brings out the tire. And they wrap it around him, and God's very compliant here. He even helps them put the tire on. And this background here is, there was xenophobic attacks, they call it xenophobic. I don't really like these mass kind of labels for shit, because it always neuters what is really at stake, and we forget about the details of this. So I can't even remember how this started in 2008, but it was South Africans accusing Africans from other part of Africa. I got 10 minutes only. Oh shit, I thought you said I had an hour and a half. You're gonna die a death. Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna speak very quickly. Yeah, these lights are killer. Okay, cool. All right, let me speak very quickly. Okay, so sorry, I was taking my time because I thought I had an hour and a half. I might as well talk much faster. So then we got the xenophobic attacks happening in 2008, so-called black-on-black violence. Basically, Africans who have immigrated to South Africa, sometimes not legally, are living in informal settlements, and their homes get burned. And so I have the jester running around, and because it was on a blue screen that we shot this, he's keyed out because he's got the blue makeup on, and also he's got the yellow, which worked out really well because he also looks like he's inflamed, and he's trying to stop it, right? And he's screaming, stop, 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 stop. Anyway, and then God dies. And those little sponges and stuff. But it was also how we basically used that studio until we had 20 seconds left of the hiring of the studio, and you could see these guys at some point they were passing. They were surpassing the moment of the performance, where one of the characters he was telling me before, and he's he's so pissed off with God. His wife had an affair, she's divorced him, left him with the 3 kids, he's a single dad, and he's telling me, and he was really fuck you, you bastard, throwing the sponges. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm kind of giving you a lot of this sort of background detail to the way that the work gets made, is that in a sense it's it's like a mix between sort of intuition, and it was when I say when the work chooses you've got to make it because it hasn't chosen anybody else. And if you know that you've got to make this work, those of you who know how it feels to not say no to a work know that it will chase you and you will become physically ill if you don't create it. And for me, that moment of that calling for the work to be made is that moment of the kind of neo-shaman, right? Because I believe that the work, art should go back to the cave. It should go back to the point where we were painting in the cave. There were no gallerists, there were no dealers, there were no music contracts, we were making music, we were making theater, we were making sound. There was something really pure about that. And I personally feel like I know what that is. But I feel like the art was forgotten. So it's we've got to go back to that. And it's not the art. The art was full of chances and fucking players and opportunists. And it needs an enema. The art needs a really good shit. Because it's everybody who's failed in every other fucking discipline comes into this and fucks with it. And for me, if you haven't seen paint dry, please don't fucking talk about art. I want to hear about beauty first. I don't want to fucking walk into a gallery and see a fucking text about a work. If I do, I'll buy a fucking book. I want to see kunst with my fucking eyeballs. I want to be fed with my fucking eyeballs. That's why we have art, for this, so that it can go into here and be moved. I don't need to be dictated to. I can go and watch a fucking news program if I need a fucking news report. Anyway, so for me, this was that moment. I was also, how do I destabilize my country on their most fucking popular, like Christianized fucking television station and fuck them up. You know, you've done this to a woman, you're doing this to people, you're doing this to yourselves. And the minute I go and kill a white man who you purport to be God, you're going to be fucked off, right? You know, it's like, where the fuck is your head? So that was that whole thing, you know, how do you also configure rage into a gesture? You know? Okay, cool. I'm not actually saying everything I want to because I'm on a time schedule, time constraints, yeah. Never say no to audience and context. I mean, I think that's also the other thing is the audience and the context. So that work was done for public television. The audience was the public, the South African public, who I know and I have various fantasies about knowing. Under the spells. Okay, let's talk about this. So this one was done for my DAD residency. It was commissioned by Tanz Courtier. I was 8 months pregnant and I was going to come to Tanz Courtier here in Vienna and do a live performance. And then I was like, I might just give birth on the train. So I asked them if I could do a video, and this is what emerged out of it. So this was shot, like a few weeks before my son was born, actually, when I was on the DAD residency in Berlin. And it was based on, initially I wanted to do Saturn devouring these children, the Goya painting, and I just couldn't I bought these like dolls and I couldn't just bring myself to do it, and then I was like, I reconfigured it, and the white that you hear is 800 times. It was first published in Art Africa as a text called Art Hole, Readings from the Abyss, Readings from Within the Abyss. And the abyss is usually black, but in this case the abyss is white. And so I was asked to write a text, contribute a text to the art magazine, and that was all I wrote was Art Hole, Readings from Within the Abyss, white, 800 times. So I click it and I read the text on this. That's what I was kind of like, okay, so. There was something also that kind of came up a while ago, which I kind of feel is more sort of progressive thinking to kind of where I am, which was like, I was thinking, I had an epiphany about a couple of weeks back. I was like, oh my God, there's like 8 billion people on the planet. Under 1 billion of those people are white. How the fuck have they managed to oppress all of us for so fucking long? Like, how are we fucking alive? And you fucking like have annihilated the planet to the point that it's virtually fucking unlivable. I was saying to the students the other day, like, anybody here got a ticket to Mars? Anybody? This is like all we got, you know. And I think one of my friends, Tandy Grenville-Gray, she said to me, race is a red herring, which in English is, you know, the red herring, you shake here and everybody's like, oh, look, it's a red herring, it's a red herring. And then there's all the other shit that's happening behind that you're not paying attention to, that people are getting away with, you know. I'm going to finish this off because I really want to say this last thing before my time runs out. Actually, I don't like that statement. My time is not running out. I'm just like, another fucking war. Like, another fucking war? Didn't we do this last century? Anybody recollect that? You know, it was like, does Putin have like a fucking size complex? Do we need any more fucking big dick fucking nuclear weapons because men have like small dick complexes? It's like, white men do not fucking own this planet. Why is another white man fucking holding us fucking ransom? Like, what the fuck is going on? You know, so, yeah, my friend Chris Vessels, my bra, he said something to me this morning when I was like talking to him about a whole bunch of stuff and also this talk. And he said, I hope I kind of get some of this right. He said, empaths are powerful. Empaths need to be of power as opposed to the psychos who are in power. He said, it's our time to take over and like move from the underground. And I don't know, I hope that resonates with you, because it's like all so-called creative energies and people and sensitive, we are those empaths that we've been waiting for. I mean, we sit around waiting and think, I mean, pacifists need to fucking fight. Nobody's gonna fight for you, you know? So it's time to get out of the fucking underground and fucking realize your power. You know, and your power is everything. It's the rage that you reconfigure into things that make a fucking difference. You know, and stop saying I fucking can't, it's somebody else's job. Because you here, there's nobody fucking else who's going to do it. So I want to do something with you quickly. Okay. So, I know your palms are probably sweaty. We did this the other day. So this is just because one of my frustrations with contemporary art at the moment is that people aren't making their own work, and mostly the cock artists, but the chi energy that's in your hand that is the thing that imbues the work and makes it magical. And energizes it with your story, with your history. You have your two lineages. You got your ancestral lineage and you got your DNA lineage, right? You got your DNA lineage, your ancestral, your spirit lineage and your DNA lineage, right? Which is your ancestral. Your ancestral DNA lineage is the one of your grandparents, your parents, grandparents, all those bloodlines that make you, okay? So a lot of their shit is also in your present, because if they were like, a lot of people are mixed descent, like you've got the rapers, you got the raper, you got the fucking slave, you got the slaver, whatever. You got all of these fucking people in conflict and none of the issues have been resolved, but they are in you, and part of the reason you fucked up and you diagnosed as bipolar and every other fucking like alphabet illness is because you haven't dealt with your spiritual shit, essentially. And then you've got your spirit lineage, which is where your spirit has occupied space and time. So, you start off with a little grain of sand, and then you move to a little pebble, and this is my shit. Like, you can come up with other narratives. There's a whole bunch of fucking narratives. Just pick the one that fucking sees you through the moment, And if you don't evolve through, like, being an ant and being a mouse and being a leopard and being a panther or whatever, and a panda bear and all of these things, and a tree and a mountain, in terms of your spirit evolution, by the time you reach human, you're not fully evolved spiritually to understand that. So I'm like thinking, but we got this mass extinction and we've got like global human population explosion. So all of those spiritual entities, they're fucking graduating too rapidly into the human form. So they don't fully fucking understand and appreciate what it means to be a pebble, or what it means to be an ant or a cockroach or, and so therefore the respect isn't there. The spiritual respect isn't there, right? You can I say these things not because they're conclusive. I'm not a fucking theorist, I'm an artist. I believe in fairies. All artists need to believe in fairies. We operate in fantasy. We're not fucking journalists. We are not doctors. We are not lawyers. We are not fucking politicians. We're not social workers. We're fucking artists. That's our job, and it's a fucking amazing job, because we have the right to recreate the narrative of what is happening. And that is what we need to fucking be doing. Not sitting around creating fucking abstract paintings that don't mean anything, but abstract paintings that we use our dicks to fuck the canvas. We need to fuck shit up with our craft. That's what we have. Okay, so your hands, right? Make sure they're dry. Get the damp off. Okay, and you're gonna rub your hands together, right? Very, slowly at first. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build up the heat and the energy in the palm of your hands, like just here, right? And then, I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows how to do this better, but this is something I came up with, and I find it really beautiful and like sharing it. So please, expand upon and share your developments. So when you're going to start, I like to do it. I suggest you close your eyes when you do it. Don't close your eyes just yet, because I want you to see what I'm doing. And then when you slowly, you're going to expand your hand very slowly, like micromillimeters, right? And you're going to bounce. You're going to feel a little ball of energy in the palm of your hands, right? And you're going to bounce it and bounce it and bounce it and try and grow it, and rub your arm, circulate your hands a little bit like that, and keep bouncing, growing, until you can get a really nice, just to feel it, okay? And then when you're done, you're going to put it in your chest because it's yours to keep until further notice, until you figure out when. But don't share that. That's your shit, okay? That's the energy that's in you. That's your power, okay? And that's the power that you're putting to all the work you do, whether you're writing, painting, drawing, whatever. Okay, cool. So let's do that. Close your eyes and do this. And it's very gentle. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't try and fight it. It'll build up. Don't worry. It's there. And you'll be like, oh, that's me. I'm so pretty. I'm so precious. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, there we go. Here we go.
Cool, did you feel it? Hey, wasn't that nice? Wasn't that special? Cool, you must do that more often, all right? I don't do it enough, so. But yeah, like that's your shit. That's power, okay? All right, I think I'm done preaching.
Thank you, Tracey. I'm sorry for shortening it a little bit, just because this, I guess, the heat in here, makes us want to go out. So I would say we leave the discussion for outside over a cool drink. But before we're leaving, I would like to announce the next two events of the Fortress of Cross Destinies we have here next week. So on Tuesday, we have, just one sec, the lecture and meditation by Angelo Plessas, one of our instructors these days, which is called Everywhere Present, Nowhere Visible, and vice versa. So I guess we're continuing a little bit the question of some kind of magic and power. And on Thursday, I think we will continue with what you kind of mentioned at the end, but more in a provocative way, but the presence of war, which we are still currently in here in Europe, the war in the Ukraine. And we will have a discussion, the crossing number 8, public institution of arts responding to emergencies. So how do institutions react to emergencies like the current war in the Ukraine? And this is a discussion with curators, Stenga Badovinac from yeah, danke. From the Museum of Contemporary Art in Zagreb. We have also Sebastian Szyczocki here, who is the chief curator and head of research at the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw. And last but not least, Katarina de Gaulle, who is the artistic director of the Steirischer Herbst in Graz. And the panel will be moderated by Marina, Fokidis. And now I wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you for coming again, taking some energy out of that lecture. Thank you, Tracey, and have a good evening.
Thank you.